Hi and welcome to Tabletop Gaming. My name is Charlie and today we're going to take a look inside this. This is Mice and Mystics. Now, Mice and Mystics is one of those games that tends to be recommended a little bit everywhere. It's one that has been on my sort of to be played or to be looked at pile for a really long time because it comes up in so many recommendations. So finally managed to get my hands on a copy, thought we'd take a look inside, get some vibes on what it's like, and because this is not a brand new game, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so please do pop those below. Now, this is a game from Z-Man Games, who do all sorts. I think we know them from a lot, but is a sort of storybook game. It is more about the adventure and more about the storytelling than of anything else. So sometimes, I think the last time this was recommended for me was when I was talking about how I like role-playing games and how those go into board games. So when you see a really good developed way of telling a story through a game that you feel that you've accomplished something at the end, Mice and Mystics normally comes up. Now, it's for 1 to 4 players and takes about 90 minutes to play. It is a cooperative game, which is always good, and sees you being heroes loyal to the king, but turned into mice, which I believe is to escape, just as you do. Now, as we begin, we have our rulebook. So first of all, we repeat that beautiful cover imagery on the front there, and we also have a little notice just saying stop. If you want us to teach you how to play, you can visit Z-Man Games and watch a video explanation, which is always helpful. I like those. Now, instruction wise, it's decent sized. There's plenty there, and there's not a ton. I appreciate that's upside down, but you get the idea in terms of sort of pictures and what you're going to be shown. A lot of it though is examples, and much of it seems to be sort of well laid out, is my immediate impression. So I wouldn't find this too intimidating to start off with, but I certainly would watch the video as well, because I do think they're a really good way to learn. So we then move on to Sorrow and Remembrance. Now, this is labelled at the bottom Book 1, so I suggest that this would probably be our storytelling element that we have to look through to get an idea of what's happening. So it tells us this is a Mice and Mystery storybook, and you'll find instructions on how to set up each chapter and special rules for playing each one. So we have quite long passages to read actually. So our prologue is here, and that's a full page, and it's just telling you to read that out to your fellow players, or have a player read this out. And presumably these are sort of your explanation of what's happening. It does continue a little bit for each chapter. I don't think we get anything quite so long as the prologue, but that's quite a nice way to set the scene anyway. Right, here's what's going on. Here's the context of everything you're doing, what your motivations are, and then each of the following chapters seems to be a little bit more of, right, so to do this now, you're going to need to set up the board in this way. This is what you're going to be trying to do right now. And then you take the story on yourself, reconvene at chapter 2 and be like, right, now you've done that, here's what we've got next. Now, that leaves us with the chance of a board. Oh, I like this board. This is very nice. So, it comes in 2 parts, slotted together with a nice little puzzle piece we've got there, and you'll see we have our different pages along the side. Presumably these will hold cards, because that's normally what we expect, and we've got the dial at the top there as well, so there's no physical dial to it, but presumably it'll mark some sort of passage of time, and a couple of extra spaces on there, some interesting imagery, I think is the right word. I'm intrigued. And if that wasn't enough, we're really filling the table, because we have, how many of these do we have? We have many of these. Are they double-sided as well? Yes, they are. So these are all seemingly like game component styles. So they are all sort of gridded in a way, and by that I mean they all have something sort of markering one space from another, and they have different things written across the top. So if I can try and find it here, we've got the courtyard, for example, and that's number 1. So it's likely you'll lay these out as you go. Potentially, the question I guess is whether you lay them all out at the same time, in which case you need quite a lot of table space, or whether you do it as you go. But in theory, you could always move the spaces you're not using, I guess. Oh, look, we've got the King's Chamber. How dramatic. The Queen's Chamber. Let's have a look. How have a quick look at that. And of course I mentioned it was double-sided, so you've got the forge on the other side as well. So there's plenty to explore, and because it's so interesting imagery-wise, I'm already like, ooh, and my head is sort of telling a new story already. So what's in here? How are we getting from one place to another? Why am I needing to go back there if this is happening? So very, very interesting. Now, that doesn't leave too much left in the box, but there is some interesting stuff left over that I just want to show you. So here are our tokens, quite nicely packaged. Now, I'm not one for needless plastic, I'm not a fan of it. However, it has quite nicely preserved everything within. So 1 point for that, I guess. And in a change of my usual tone, at least everything is kept together. We also have dice, which presumably will register things like your attacks, your defense, your abilities. I assume will roll for how well they'll go. And as per usual in games of this nature, we have things like a stack of cards. Now, this one in particular is offering us accurate bow. So when attacking with this bow, all rolls of this, so presumably the ones from the dice that I just showed you, count as 2 successes instead of 1, but requires an archer or a scamp. So if I just pop these open, I imagine these will be the sort of things that you pick up along the way, and that can alter your story. So if you've got a particularly good weapon, for example, you roll particularly well, you succeed in a fight, that's a whole different outcome, plausible to what it is that you could do if you then fail. Like, how drastic would that impact your story? Another reason not to be a fan of plastic is it takes so long to get into. But when we are in, yeah, so we've got things like, if I do the top lot, so obviously accurate bow is the one we've just been talking about, but you have things like the dagger and the Maginot staff, I'm going to go with for that one. So different sort of tropes of character built into the weaponry that you get. Your rogue is going to play with a dagger, your ranger is going to play with a bow, those sorts of things. Now, interestingly, we have a couple of different colours. So we've got a different red of which we have sort of some sort of action. These appear to be treachery cards. Of which one of them, amusingly, is mouldy cheese. Play immediately remove all cheese from the mouse's stash. And similarly themed, we have poison cheese, which gives you a poison wound marker. So these are likely drawn from a collective pile. You don't know when you're going to get them, and then, oh hey look, this has happened. Or perhaps an action triggers them in terms of you go into a room, oh no look, you need to pick out this specific card. Now, just as few as those, we have even fewer fortune cards, which come up as a cheese stash, a rest spot, and plans revealed. So these, that top one, for example, or this one, sorry, I should say, gives you the option to gain cheese. Presumably cheese is your sort of like good fortune currency, because that's the second time we've mentioned cheese, but it's very in keeping with the mice theme, so we can't complain. And then we have 2 more. So we have these sort of yellowish cards, which appear to be tricks. So play this card when the hourglass marker moves on the chapter track. Add 2 cheese to each mouse's stash. So these are probably a little bit more of a variation, like a this happens when this happens, or like some are good, some are bad, I would imagine. So those perhaps stay in your wheelhouse for later. And then the last ones we have blue, which are, what are we looking at? We're looking at armour, so things that you can pick up along the way. So we have a button shield, very, very cute. This reminds me of sort of, is it like Rats of Nim? Something along those lines where it's all very cute. Or even Mouse Ritter, it reminds me of Mouse Ritter. Now, the last bit have our party items, which is just a delightful thing. Invoke Cheddar Golem, look at that, that's a scroll. When a mouse uses this scroll, its battle becomes 4, its defense becomes 3. There are no minions remaining on the board on the tile. This scroll's user, the effects of the scroll end. But just take a moment to think sort of that actually coming out within your story. There's now a cheese golem on the board. Why not? We've got other things, so grapes, which offer a grape token to the party stash. Don't know why that makes a difference. A heal all, that's really good. Levitate, Ring of Remembrance, slow. Summon cat. A mouse can use this to immediately encounter Brody. Tinkerer's Treasure, Ring of Cat Strength. All of them very, very cute, and all of them very nicely themed as well. This feels like sort of playing the Musketeers, but in a cool story way that's themed around mice. Now, a few more bits. We have our presumably character cards. So there's Tilda, our healer. We've got a little bit of flavour text on the back as to what her story is, and more info. So we have our leader, our warrior, which is Colin. I love that he's called Colin. Filch is the scamp. Lily is the archer, Maginos is the mystic, and Nez is the tinkerer and warrior. But they've all got really quite adorable artwork associated with them. They're all really, really nice to look at, and very cute. But I can imagine it's very easy to talk people into playing this game and to wanting to play it again, because it's just quite endearing. Now, last little bits that we have some additional action cards which give things like first aid. In that case, we have Brody Chasers. These are seemingly your cat cards, sort of more perilous cards, and also encountered cards as well. I won't ruin those because we don't want to, but they're ones that will crop up as the game goes on. Now, the very last thing in the box to show you, other than another bag that you might need for all of the bits and bobs you've got, and the fact that the insert comes as this, which is a bit of a shame. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that's just going to get chucked in, is the mice themselves. So these are super cute. These are little figures for your different things, your different attacking things. We've got, look at that funky little mouse there. Ain't he cute? But we've got tons of that description. We've got lots to choose from. We've got our little archer there. I'll show you that way around, and then there she is. Very, very cool. And all sorts, but it doesn't stop at just the mice, even though the mice are very cool themselves, because we also have your enemies as well. By the look, we not only have those very, very cute mice, but we also have our enemies. So we're going to include things like this. This is your spider. He looks slightly terrifying, and some much smaller ones as well, sort of more beetle-like ones that are quite tricky to hold up, but are perfectly fine for when you're actually playing on a flat board. We've got a couple of those, so maybe they swarm at you. And we'll finish off just with another mouse, because he's got a little hat on and he's really cute. Now, whilst this has just been a quick unboxing to get a look at what's inside, quite nicely, it's quite easy to tell what's happening with this. There's a story already being sort of the foundations of which are being laid. There's this sort of whole world happening with mice and magic that we perhaps didn't consider, using all the storytelling tropes that we love and are familiar with, so that's really good fun too. Now, nicely, I'm seeing patterns of things of games that are similar to this nature, so I already know the dice are going to be sort of how I attack, how I roll, what I gain from each movement or each action that I choose to take with them. We've got a nice storybook as well that isn't actually too long when you think about it, and the real a sort of idea that I can change my fate based on the amount of cards we have, but without them being too excessive, that this game just turns into a management system, which some of them, let's be honest, are guilty of. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because likely you have played this already. Tell me what you think. Tell me if this is one of the best ones. Are there better ones? Let me know. But otherwise, I would totally recommend that you also check out Tabletop Gaming magazine. Now, you'll see it in various spaces on the calyx behind me. We publish a monthly magazine. It is available in print and digital, and you can pick it up online or in good local news agents. But within it, you get to hear from experts, people who know what they're doing, have played games. There'll be things on Mice and Mystics that you can find in there of people that have already played through it, and we hope that you enjoy those. I'll pop the link in the description so you can check it out. There's also always a ton of exciting things that we're doing, so keep an eye on our news and socials as to what's going on for cool updates as well. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.